Okay, so we're going to talk about interest groups now. First thing we need to do is we need to define a term called public policy. Public policy, one way you could define it is directives issued by government entities whose observance is enforced by the application of coercive force. In essence, what that means is you're going to do it or else bad things are going to happen to you. There's different types of public policy. Congress has the ability to make public policy by the issuance of law. You could also refer to them as bills, statutes, acts, and so forth. Let's see, the president also makes public policy by the issuance of executive orders, and you will comply with those executive orders issued by the president, or bad things will happen to you. The bureaucracy issues administrative regulations. Those are a form of public policy. And then finally, the judiciary issues public policy by the creation of precedents. So whenever the judiciary decides a case, that can serve as a precedent for future decisions. Since all of these are forms of public policy, special interest groups will attempt to influence all of them. They'll attempt to influence Congress, bureaucracy, and the court system in particular. There's different views of American democracy, and here what we're trying to do is be descriptive rather than prescriptive. We're trying to describe things as they are rather than how things should be. And with this view of democracy, we're trying to answer the question, who's really making the decisions, or what's causing public policy to be made in the manner that it is. The majoritarian view of American democracy holds that public policy is the product of the will of the majority. And again, this is not necessarily saying that it should be. This is trying to describe it as is. Most observers of American politics will hold that the majoritarian view does not adequately or accurately describe American politics. Then there's the pluralist view of American politics. The pluralist view holds that public policy is the product of the interaction and conflict of different groups. And there's the elitist view. The elitist view of American politics holds that public policy is the product of the will of the elite. The evidence of the elitist view is that the people that actually get elected to Congress mirror demographically the people who run major corporations. They tend to be older, wealthier, better educated. Their educations come from college, elite colleges. They also tend to be white. So this idea that there is an elite and that they're running the show, they're making the decisions, there's a lot of evidence for that. And then finally, there's the Marxist view of American politics that holds that public policy is the product of the attempt of the bourgeoisie to oppress the proletariat, which in essence is Marxist view of everything. Okay, another term we need to become familiar with is linking institution. Let's go ahead and define that term. A linking institution is any institution that connects citizens with the government. This can be differentiated from a policy-making institution, which has the authority to make public policy. Policy-making institutions in the United States would be Congress, President, bureaucracy, and the court system. In the United States, there are 4 linking institutions, and they are special interest groups, political parties, elections, and media. And again, a linking institution is any institution that connects citizens with the government. This connection can take the place or take the form of providing citizens information about governmental policies, encouraging or facilitating citizen involvement in the political process. It could be a way of communicating to the government citizen preferences, such as the case of elections. So anything that connects citizens with the government, that's what we're going to call a linking institution. Another point of clarification we need to make sure everybody's clear on would be the difference between interest groups and political parties. And I think we covered this with political parties, but we'll go through it again. Political party can be defined as an organization of people who seek to influence public policy by getting their members elected to public office. Therefore, political parties are election-centered. This can be differentiated from a special interest group, which is an organization of people who seek to influence public policy. They do not necessarily try to get their members elected. So they, in essence, end up focusing on a narrow range of issues, whereas a political party in a two-party system tends to be broadly focused in its appeal, taking on many issues. Another thing that we need to distinguish between would be interest group versus an interest. Interest groups are organized. They might have a headquarters, they have a president, they've got a newsletter, email list, official membership list, and so on. And interest is not organized. Now, some interests correspond also to interest groups, but we need to keep the two separate. So here's an example. What would be like African Americans. African Americans are an interest. It's not an interest group. The NAACP is an interest group. Okay, Christians are an interest. The Christian Coalition is an interest group. Okay, James Madison had some views on American politics. He believed that people were very self-interested and typically would try to pursue a course of action that would benefit themselves or benefit people that are like them. These groups, Madison called factions. So whenever you hear the term faction, it's going to refer to what we'll call an interest or a political party. Madison believes that factions, while undesirable, are inevitable in a free society. If your society is truly free, it is quite natural then that citizens will band together to form groups to pursue a cause, to pursue public policy that benefits them. Madison also believes that competition among the various factions would mitigate the problems of faction. Okay, and then the principal task of government is to manage the interplay of group interest. So this fits very nicely in the pluralist view of American politics, is that public policy becomes the product of the interaction and conflict of different groups. Interest groups can also be a threat to the American political system because of a concept called hyperpluralism. Hyperpluralism occurs whenever you have too many interest groups that are competing against one another and no group really wants to compromise. So it makes policy making very difficult. Here's some examples of different types of interest groups. Some interest groups tend to be single-issue interest groups. Examples would include the National Right to Life Committee and then the pro-choice people in Pro-Choice America. There are economic special interest groups, for example, labor unions, trade associations, and professional associations. Public interest special interest groups. This type of special interest group tries to pursue a course of action that they believe will benefit not just themselves, but everybody in the society. Examples of this would be the Sierra Club and my personal favorite, Ocean Champions. You got to love a name like that. The problem with public interest groups would be the free rider problem. In the two groups before, typically, if the group is successful, members of the group benefit, and members and people who are not members of the group might be excluded. Whereas in a public interest special interest group, if the group is successful, everybody benefits. They're going to benefit whether they were a part of the group or not. So there's a disincentive to actually participate in the group. And then there are religious special interest groups, of which the most well-known would perhaps be the Christian Coalition. And there are ideological special interest groups, and these are groups that pursue, in public policy, a specific ideology. And again, special interest groups are different from political parties. The two parties in the United States, while ideology is a part of them, aren't purely ideological. Ideological special interest groups want to pursue in public policy a specific ideology. For example, on the left side would be MoveOn.org, Purple PAC, which would appeal to moderates, and then finally Eagle Forum on the right side. Special interest groups will also attempt to shape public opinion. The reason why they'll do this is if public opinion can be swayed to their point of view, then it's likely then that the public will put pressure on public officials to pursue a course of action that favors the group. Shaping public opinion takes place in what's called grassroots lobbying, or trying to lobby individuals at the local level. Grassroots lobbying, therefore, is a form of lobbying the public. This will usually take the form of media activism, so special interest groups will attempt to get their message out with both paid and what is called earned media. Paid media is simply advertising. Earned media is whenever the special interest group does something that is newsworthy or noteworthy, and that the media goes out and covers as a consequence of its job. Special interest groups will also try to enlist what are called opinion leaders. These are individuals who have the ability to influence others, such as professional athletes, movie stars, religious figures, and other famous individuals. And the thought process is if we can get these individuals on our side, then people that like them will follow. Special interest groups will also stage protests and demonstrations, etc., as a way to garner support for their cause or to generate awareness of their cause.